Buckle your seatbelt. It's time for another episode of the Prepper Recon Podcast. I've personally been buying gold and silver from JM Bullion for over 2 years. They offer the best prices over spot that I can find, and I've never had a problem with an order. If you're looking to trade in some of your fiat paper for real money, check out jmbullion.com today. Ready Made Resources is a trusted name in the prepper community because they've been around for 18 years. They offer great prices on night vision, water filtration, long-term storage food, solar energy components, and provide free technical service. Get ready for an uncertain future at readymaderesources.com. Hey Preppers and Patriots, this is a recording of my recent appearance on Soaring Eagle Radio with Dr. Mike Spaulding. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, friends. Thanks for listening to this episode of Soaring Eagle Radio. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes and Stitcher. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. And, of course, you can listen to every episode on our website, soaringeagleradio.com. Mark Goodwin is the author of the recently released Behold, Darkness and Sorrow, 7 Cows, Ugly and Gaunt, Book 1, The Days of Noah Trilogy, and The Economic Collapse Chronicles, a 3-book series on the challenges people face during an economic meltdown. You can find Mark on the internet on his website, prepperrecon.com, where you'll find his podcast show and archives and many helpful resources. Welcome back to the Soaring Eagle Radio Show, Mark.
Pastor Mike, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's always a blessing to talk with you, Mark. I consider you a good friend, and so I appreciate you taking the time to join me. I'd like to start our conversation tonight with your new book, Behold, Darkness and Sorrow, 7 Cows, Ugly and Gaunt, Book 1. Is it correct to believe that this is going to be another trilogy, 3-book series?
It's going to be at least 2.
At least 2.
Good.
Okay.
Probably it will probably be a trilogy.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping to have the second book of that out in late July.
Oh wow, that's quick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's quick. Well, you're doing some very heavy lifting as far as writing goes. Then that's a pretty tight schedule. And I want my listeners to know that they can go to your website and order that book right off your website. Does that take them to Amazon, Mark?
Yeah, that's where it takes them. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And
Okay.
It's available in paperback, Kindle, and audio edition.
Okay. Now, you've stayed true to form on this book, as you did in the Days of Noah, as well as the Economic Collapse Chronicles, and that is very realistic fiction. It's I think most people that have read the book and talked to me about it have said, this is more real than it is fiction. Now, in this book, Behold, Darkness and Sorrow, the trigger event is an EMP. So I'd like to discuss that first of all, and the likelihood of that happening. What is an EMP, Mark?
Well, an EMP is an electromagnetic pulse, and those are generated, there's several different ways they can be generated, but for the most part, they were discovered in the Starfish Prime experiment shortly after World War II, when they set off a nuclear device high in the atmosphere, and it generated a really high radio wave, essentially, that crippled a lot of electronics and burned out power lines and things in that nature. The Russians also did some experimentation with high altitude detonations in the 40s and 50s, and also studied the EMP effect. Of course, that effect has now been very largely considered as a weapon itself by nation states, and it's particularly thought that North Korea could possibly be planning an EMP attack against America. They have now, right after Super Bowl, they launched a second satellite. It's a KSM satellite, and both of them are called KSM satellites, and they orbit right over America, and so these could possibly be housing hydrogen bombs, which they've just recently tested as well, which would generate an electromagnetic pulse that could take out the grid of America, Mexico, Canada. If they had the right size bomb at the right altitude in the right place, it could really cripple most of this hemisphere, especially with two.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and what they do is they'll take out anything that has circuitry in it. So, cell phones, electrical grid, cars, computers, which computers and electricity are pretty much run our entire society now. So once they're gone, pretty much everything's gone. There's no grocery stores. There's no EMS. There's no police. There's no banks. There's no ATMs. There's no cars. And there's no gas stations. So, it'd be a pretty catastrophic thing to have happen in a country that, has no idea where ketchup comes from.
Yes, right. Yeah. Isn't that the truth? And we're not talking here a temporary 24, 48 hour loss of power, are we?
No. This would be an ongoing thing, and it could take years and years and years to rebuild the infrastructure and the equipment, the transformers and things that we would need to restart the grid. And we don't produce any of that stuff here. It's all produced in either Germany or China, which it'd be terrible to be in such a situation that China was our only hope.
Yeah.
and the Germans have not proved to be, when you got bombs and nukes and stuff like that, then, they're very well behaved. But, when you're down on your luck, history hasn't been kind to those that have turned their back on the Germans.
Yeah, that's right. Now, the ironic thing is that, for as little as a couple of $1 billion, we could actually, the United States could actually harden its grid against this kind of an attack, though. Is that accurate?
Yeah. For what we give, I think Pakistan in foreign aid every year, a country that persecutes Christians and, locks you up if you convert to Christianity. And,
yeah. So we're talking about something that, is a well-known technology. Experiments have been conducted. Governments, understand the results, what the results would be if something like this happened, and yet there aren't any governments that are trying to protect against this, and that's amazing to me, Mark. Now, I know that you've talked to Dr. Peter Pry on your podcast, and I've talked to him as well. Peter Pry was the director of the EMP task force, and they put out some reports, and I'm wondering if you would touch on some of those statistics just to drive home the point for folks listening. This is a very serious problem that if North Korea or any other terrorist organization or nation decided to use an EMP against America, we're talking about some pretty devastating results. I wonder if you'd touch on a couple of those things.
Yeah, they found that the likely die-off would probably be around 90%, and it's what's called a soft kill because you're not actually nuking America, so you're not actually killing everybody with the direct effect of a nuclear device, which then contaminates the land and the soil and makes all of our resources unusable. An invading army could set off an EMP. Give us 6 months to die off and then come in and there'd be no radiological contamination afterwards. And 6 months later, most of the smell would be blown away, given that you've got, a good breeze blowing.
Yeah.
So, most of the die off is going to be from a lack of water. People have no access to water. We have a large percentage of our population lives in a city and they're dependent on municipal water supplies. In the event of an EMP, that's all gone. And survival rule of threes is that you can go about 3 days without water. And so without a source of water, most people would be gone in the first week. So, and then as they got thirsty and they ran out of water and figured that the government wasn't coming to help them, by the time they took action to go look for water, they would probably be drinking from contaminated streams and lakes and rivers, and they'd get dysentery and just prolong an otherwise agonizing death.
Yeah.
So it's not good at all. It's a very easy fix. Most people, even people that are on wells, are dependent on an electric pump to pump the water out of their well. And it's a very easy fix if you're on a well to add a hand pump to that. What you can do is just tee off of the wellhead, put a second check valve so that you can actually operate a hand pump off of that same wellhead. And the electric pump can be going at the same time as the hand pump, and they don't affect each other as long as you've got two check valves. And people can go to my YouTube channel, which is Prepper Recon on YouTube, and I've got a video of the pump that I put on my wellhead, and it costs about $200 to do. So that's a very small price to pay to have water security, and especially when it's something that's so important. But even if you're in a city, think about getting a good water filter and just a couple of bottles of bleach, something that you're going to be able to sterilize, sanitize, and filter water from wherever you can get a supply of fresh water. And that's something you have to think about now, because it's like car insurance. If you wait till you have a wreck, it's too late. You can't get the insurance after you've had the wreck.
That's right. Well, that gives us a good foundation, a good background, a good glimpse into your book, Behold Darkness and Sorrow, because that event, the trigger event in the book, is an EMP.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. Katie Armor offers affordable body armor, including level 3 trauma plates made of AR-500 steel. These plates can endure multiple rounds from pistols and rifles up to 7.62 NATO. Use coupon code PREPPERRECON to get 10% off your entire order at katiearmor.com. That's CATI armor.com.
It's Sunday night. A busy work week is just around the corner. Then, suddenly, your lights won't turn on. Your phone stops working. Are you ready for what tomorrow could bring? Come to the Atlanta Preparedness Expo. Learn about solar power, communications, emergency water, long-term food storage, survival kits, bug-out bags, concealed carry, grab-and-go medical kits, suture classes, experts on-site at the Atlanta Preparedness Expo. April 23rd and 24th, Cobb Galleria Center, Atlanta, Georgia.
And so you've got your three main characters, and I'm not going to give any real good stuff away. I'll let you decide to do that, Mark. But your three main characters, Danny, Alyssa, and Stephen, prepared for an EMP, and I think that the reason that they prepared for it is very important, and Christians will understand this, the importance of it. But you had Danny experiencing a vision, a prophetic vision from the Lord that related to upcoming events. The majority of the church today dismisses prophecy and prophetic visions and things of that nature, but I think they do so at their own peril, and I think you believe the same thing.
Yeah, I do, and I think a lot of the reason that of course, there's denominational issues where that's just what they're taught. They're taught to disregard all the gifts of the Spirit. Yeah. And then there's other folks that come from, either slightly more Pentecostal or what I think of the Calvary Chapel movement as being a little bit more, I call it a balanced movement. Yes. Is what I think, is that you don't get too far to the left, too far to the right. Yeah. But I think that a lot of people, even in the movement similar to Calvary Chapel, are quick to dismiss it because they've heard so many false prophets. But then you have to think back. You have to think about to Jeremiah. 40 years he spent telling everybody the sky's falling in. With basically nothing happening. And all this time, he's got all these other prophets giving false visions. And I think that is the biggest trick of the enemy, is to dilute the real message with all of these counterfeits. And I think that the counterfeit is almost proof positive that the real thing exists, because if there were no real thing, there'd be nothing to counterfeit in the first place. And so I think that you've got a lot of folks on a lot of YouTube channels and even Christian programming today that are giving out a lot of stuff that I think is not necessarily the Lord, and a lot of it is from their own imagination. I don't think it's all necessarily satanic, but I think a lot of it is just stuff that they've kind of whipped up in their own head. But that does not dismiss the fact that you could have actual prophetic visions and actual prophetic messages. And what I've done is I've started really tracking these people and putting down what they said was going to happen, when they said it was going to occur, and tracking the websites and all of that stuff just for my own personal research. And there's just tons of them, and most of it's not coming true. But now, back in the 70s, I'm sure you remember David Wilkerson.
Yes. Yep.
He talked about a vision that God gave him back in the 70s. Yeah. And in this vision, he said that there would be, homosexual churches. Now, if you're living in the 70s, and somebody says there's going to be a homosexual church, that guy sounds like an absolute wacko, because anybody that's going to be a practicing homosexual is doing so, and in that culture is directly defying God in the 70s in America. And so that's like, if they're going to do that, that's like choosing between church and going to the lake on your boat. You know, you've chose the other thing. You don't have any interest in going to church if that's what you've decided to do. Yeah. Well, here we are today. And right before I left Fort Lauderdale, right up the street from my house was a church called Sunshine Cathedral. This was an exclusively male church, and everybody in there from the pastor to all the congregants, and we would see them coming in and going out when we would be driving to church on Sunday mornings, and all men. And it was a gay church. Now, another thing that David Wilkerson said was, he said that primetime television would be filled with pornography. Now, in the 70s, this is another thing that sounds absolutely crazy to somebody in the 70s. Okay, you can't have pornography on television, right? In 1973, right. You've got governmental agencies. You've got just some sense of morals by the television executives in that era. Yes. That's not something that could happen. So he's talking about something that's absolutely socially impossible. Well, here we are in the 2010s, and we have primetime television. We've got the Victoria's Secrets fashion show. We've got all the bumping and grinding that you see going on at the Super Bowl half times, and you know, I don't even look at the picture. I don't even know what's going on in the Grammys. I don't even pay attention to that stuff.
Right. Yes.
You know, I'll see something on Yahoo News or on Drudge Report about what Miley Cyrus was wearing or doing or whatever. And it's pornography, and the television shows, we hardly watch any television anymore. We used to watch 24. We used to like that, Jack Bauer and stuff. Yes. And recently there was another show that came out that was, I thought maybe was going to be sort of that kind of a television show. It was called Quantico. Well, on the very first episode, it wasn't 15, 20 minutes into the show, the girl that was, I don't know, she was going to try out for the FBI or something, and she's on a plane with a guy that's going to also to go to work at the FBI, and they run out of the airport, and it shows them in the car in a very, very graphic position. It doesn't show, but it's softcore porn is what it was. Yes. And, right. I had to turn it right off. And, unfortunately, that's most shows. I don't even watch them, so I don't even know how many other ones are out there that start like that in the first 15 or 20 minutes of the pilot episode. But I'm sure there's just tons of them. And it's pornography on primetime television.
Yeah.
Another thing that David Wilkerson saw in his vision in the 70s was witchcraft in the churches.
Yeah.
Now, 1973.
Yeah.
Somebody's talking about witchcraft in a church. That's
Right.
the same thing. You know, you're either going to go to the lake on Sunday and ride your boat, or you're going to go to church. You're going to choose between one or the other. If you want to go ride the boat, there's no inkling in your mind to want to go to church.
Right. Yeah.
Why would somebody in witchcraft want to go to church in the first place for there to even be witchcraft in the church? It sounds asinine in 1973 when he said this.
Yes.
That same church up the street from my house in Fort Lauderdale, Sunshine Cathedral, on Saturdays has a psychic fair where you can go get your tarot card read, get your palm read. It's witchcraft in a church with a steeple, with stained glass, with the two white doors that open up and the Greek columns and the little porch that looks like something out of the church itself looks like something out of Little House on the Prairie.
Yeah.
But it's filled with abominations.
Yes.
And so there are, just because there's a lot of people that are having visions that aren't coming true, and people that are having visions and dreams that they've whipped up in their own mind, doesn't mean that they're not actually happening for other people.
Yes.
And when you see things like that, where David Wilkerson's hit three things like that, and they're so coming true, and then you start hearing him talk about fires, cities on fire.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to say, well, if he was right about those other three things, then I need to really keep my eyes open about, the cities burning.
Yes.
Which was another part of his vision. And now, one of the things that happens in an EMP is that the electrical lines, it really gets concentrated in the electrical lines, and they burst into flames. Mm-hmm. So that would very, very likely catch many major cities on fire because of the amount of electrical lines and their proximity to buildings. Yeah.
Yeah. And then without the electricity, the cities are just going to burn to the ground.
Yeah.
They won't have any way to put it out.
No.
Yeah. Well, that's a great answer to why we should be paying attention to prophecy and visions, what the Bible has to say about the end times. Sadly, many churches pay no attention to any of that. They're too busy trying to put on another seminar about how you can be a better husband, wife, or parent. There's a place for all that. I don't mean to suggest that there isn't, but what we really need to do is stick to just teaching the Bible for what it says and equipping and preparing people. Well, one of the things that I like about your books, Mark, is that you always take the time to make sure that people understand that there is a great need, it's an urgent need really, for them to get prepared for a disruption in the food supply. And you also tell them, listen, it's not that hard. It doesn't take a lot of money. You can put a little bit back at a time each week or bi-weekly whenever you get paid. But you don't have to have a huge investment to prepare a food supply. So I'm wondering if you could take our listeners through a bare bones approach to creating a food pantry. What should they put in there? What should they stock?
Anything that comes in a metal can will technically last till Jesus comes back. Yeah. The caveats on that is that you don't want anything dented. But just because it says it's expired doesn't mean you need to throw it in the garbage. If you've got a can of green beans from 1958, it's not going to taste like it would have tasted in 1958. It's not going to have the nutritional value that it would have had in 1958. But if that can is not dented, if it doesn't have any rust, you can open that and you can eat those green beans and they won't kill you. And they will have some nutritional value. And, if you got enough salt and pepper, you can still make them palatable.
Yeah.
So canned goods are a great thing. One of the easy things to store is pasta and pasta sauce. And this is something that you, whatever part of the country you happen to be in, whether you've got Kroger or Winn-Dixie or Publix or whatever your local grocery store happens to be, all these places have buy one, get one free deals. And a lot of times you can catch the Hunt's pasta sauce, and it's 99 cents, and you can get that buy one, get one free. So you're getting these big cans of pasta sauce for 50 cents. You know what you do? You get one of those big plastic tubs that they sell at Walmart. You fill that thing all the way up with cans of pasta sauce and slide that in the closet. Or, better yet, what you can do is you can get a platform bed frame, and that'll allow you to slide those plastic things underneath your bed. So you're actually not taking up any extra room at all. What happens with the platform bed frame is it's got springs in it that act like a box spring, but eliminate the need for the box spring. So you get about 14 to 16 inches of clearance underneath the bed, without the box springs, and you still have a bed that's a normal height. Yeah, there's a cheaper way to do that with the box springs, and you can just stack it up on concrete blocks and get whatever clearance you need. Now you're gonna have sort of a high rider bed. You're gonna have to crawl up in that, but you know, if you're on a budget and you just need a cheap solution, then that's one. And then pasta, of course, it's got protein in it, and it will store for just about forever. The thing about pasta is that if it's not in some type of a sealed package, it is susceptible to getting weevils in it. So one of the ways you can do that is you can get you a Home Depot bucket. And you can just get a Home Depot lid, and you can fill that thing up with pasta and cap that lid on it and leave it like that until you need it. But what I like to do is I like to rotate stuff. So I buy the Gamma Seal lids off of Amazon.com, and that allows me to open that lid and reseal it whenever I want. Those lids are a little bit more expensive. You get a 12 pack, they're about $10 a piece. If you buy them one at a time, they're about 15. But you can fill that up with pasta, and you'll have that with your pasta sauce. What's even cheaper than pasta and pasta sauce is rice. You can get a 20-pound bag of rice, and it's going to cost you about $8 at Walmart if you get the Walmart brand. And then you can get a few bags of beans. A bag of beans about $1.20 for a pound of beans at Walmart, and then throw 20 pounds of rice, and you can fit about 5 or 6 pounds of beans in that same bucket, the same 5-gallon bucket that you bought at Home Depot. And you can either buy the Home Depot lid for $2. You can get the Gamma Seal lid, like I said, for $10 that it screws out and then screws back in with an airtight lock. And put a box of salt in there, and now you've got beans and rice and salt, and you've got several meals out of that. You know, that'll keep you alive, one person, for about 3 weeks if that bucket's all the way filled with 5 or 6 pounds of beans and a 20-pound bag of rice. And that's very, very cheap. You know, you just need somewhere to store it. And the thing about the buckets is you can stack those things all the way up to the ceiling. You know, if you're not concerned about what it looks like,
Yes.
You could actually use the buckets as the base underneath your bed, underneath the box spring, to actually hold it up so that you can slide the plastic tubs under the rest of it that's got your pasta and your pasta sauce. So now that's the cheap stuff that you could just go and stock up on. Otherwise, every time you go to the store and you buy whatever you like that's canned or that stores well, just buy 2 of them. And every time you've got coupons or buy one, get one free deals, you stock up. You get whatever you like to eat. And it'll all store for a very long period of time. You don't have to buy all of the expensive freeze-dried stuff. Although if you've got the budget for it, you might want to buy a little bit of that stuff just to sort of break up the flavor so that you're not eating beans and rice and pasta every single day for the rest of the apocalypse.
Right. I know you've heard your fair share of people that hear this and they say, well, if all this was true, if America was about to experience a serious catastrophic event, I'd hear it on the news, and I'm not hearing it, so apparently it's not going to happen. What do you say to that?
Well, they're playing it. Ted Koppel went around to just about all of the news programs out there, and I'm not a big Ted Koppel fan, but he was, part of a movement of trying to wake folks up. He just wrote a new book called Lights Out, and he finds similar findings that while he's not talking about an EMP directly, he's talking more about just taking the grid down through a computer virus, and he seems to think that the Iranians and the Russians and the Chinese and other nation states are already in all of our SCADA systems, and it's just a matter of time of whenever they're ready to flip the switch, they can do it. Or it could be, it could have a countdown timer inside of it. But he said it's in there and it's going to happen, and it's just a matter of when. So it's in the news. In the Republican primaries, I think Ben Carson talked about an EMP. Ted Cruz talked about an EMP. I can't remember if anybody else actually said the word EMP, but it was in the debates, and this was something that was regularly coming up in the debates. While they didn't get to spend a whole lot of time on it, it was certainly mentioned by them, and anybody that's not hearing it in the news is kind of tuning out when it's being spoken about or when people are talking about it. And I think it was Scarlett O'Hare that, when she didn't want to deal with something, she'd say, "Oh, fiddly-dee, I'll think about that tomorrow." Right. And I think there's a whole lot of fiddly-dee and a whole lot of sticking our heads in the sand, when we hear about things that are too catastrophic and we don't know how to deal with them. And that seems to be the best solution, is that it's not here right now, and so I don't have to think about it today. That's the end of the first half of my conversation with Mike Spaulding from Soaring Eagle Radio. Tune in next week for the rest of the show.
In 7 Cows, Ugly and Gaunt, Book 1, Behold Darkness and Sorrow, Daniel Walker begins having prophetic dreams about the judgment coming upon America for rejecting God's Word. Through one of his dreams, Daniel learns of an imminent threat of an electromagnetic pulse attack, sending the country into a technological dark age. If they want to live, Daniel and his friends must focus on faith, wits, and preparation to be ready before the lights go out. Buy your copy of 7 Cows, Ugly and Gaunt, Book 1, Behold Darkness and Sorrow, by best-selling author Mark Goodwin, in paperback, Kindle, or audio edition from Amazon.com today.
Get prepared before disaster strikes. PrepperRecon.com offers MOLLE-compatible individual first aid kits for your home, auto, or bug-out bag. These kits have everything you need to address a traumatic injury, including an Israeli battle dressing, quick clot, EMT shears, suture kit, steri strips, tourniquet, tough strip bandages, and so much more. Kits are available in OD Green, Coyote, Black, and ACU. $99 includes shipping. Go to PrepperRecon.com and click the Store tab at the top of the home page. Order today before it's too late.